I posted 2 videos a day, every single day, 365 days a year for 10 years. Nobody knows who you are, then you can't sell them your product. Some way to monetize the fact that they know who you are, then what's the good of them knowing who you are? You may as well have nobody know who you are. Your life would probably be more simple, right? I think that, to be honest with you, where I'm at today and probably where I'll be in 10 years probably won't look the same at all. Really, in any industry, it doesn't matter if you're a dentist, it doesn't matter what you are. If people don't know who you are or what you do, every real estate agent, every team leader, every broker, every dentist, every surgeon, everybody on planet Earth has to do some form of marketing. How do I drive them into my world? How do I bring them into my funnel? People are the solution to making more money. You really can't achieve anything great on planet Earth without people. The more hands that you shake, the more money that you'll make.
Welcome to the Refuge Podcast Playbook Series. This is Danny Gould, joined by Austin Zabak, founder of Space Real Estate, #1 team in all of Arizona, amongst many other things. Austin, you are a real estate titan, I would say, man. You are definitely, and if you're not already, you're well on your way, right? You've done a lot of awesome things, man, in the space. So congrats to you. And I'm really looking, what the topic is for today is social media. And you've got a massive presence, massive following, over 500,000 followers on Instagram. And what I wanted to do today is kind of like go through the journey of how you went about building it. And then in building it, how you've leveraged the social media presence that you've built into helping your real estate businesses grow, right? So why don't we just start out, man, at the very beginning. Now walk us through the fledgling stages of your real estate career, and when you decide, when was that moment that you decided, all right, I'm gonna go all in on social?
Yeah. Well, yeah, Danny, I'm happy to have the conversation, and hopefully anybody listening can get a little bit of value. I guess a little bit of backstory on me. I'm currently 29 years old, and I own multiple different. Yeah, pretty wild, right? But there's levels to the game, right? There's a lot of people that I look up to that are doing better than me. So there's always another level for sure. But 100%. Yeah, here I am, right? I'm 29 now. I own quite a few different real estate companies. You mentioned one of them, right? We run the #1 retail team in all of Arizona. But I own multiple other, real estate companies as well, right? I own a wholesaling company, a fairly large wholesaling company. We're one of the largest wholesalers actually in the nation. And then I own a real estate education company where we teach people how to wholesale. And then, just some other odds and ends companies. I own a media company, and just some other stuff. So, but, to, I guess, come full circle, Danny, on what your initial question was, I got into social media when I was probably 17 or 18 years old. I mean, I think I technically made my Instagram account in either 2012 or 2013. And I think it was right basically when it first came out. I'd have to go look back and see when Instagram actually launched. But it was either 2012 or 2013 when I made my Instagram. So it was
early. Yeah, it was around that time frame. It was a little bit earlier, but it was right around that time frame.
Yeah. When did Instagram come out? Here, I'll just Google it right here okay, so it came out in 2010, late 2010, so early 2011. So, within 2 years of Instagram being out, I was on the platform, and at that point I had made the decision that I wanted to post content, right? I wanted to be I guess an influencer. I don't really consider myself to be that. I don't love that term, right? But I think, I wanted to provide value online, and I understood at that time that it was all marketing, right? And I understood that the more people that knew who I was and what I did, the more money I would probably make, and the faster I would achieve my goal and my dream, right? And so I understood that pretty early on, and obviously at the time I had no idea what I was doing on social media, but I knew that taking action was better than not taking action, right? And so, dude, I posted, I actually did the math the other day, Danny. between my YouTube, my TikTok, and my Instagram, I posted 2 videos a day, every single day, 365 days a year for 10 years straight. So to let that sink in for a minute. So 2 videos a day, every day, 365 for 10 years straight without fail. Right.
So so roughly 7,000 pieces of content.
7,000 pieces of content. Yep. So if you go look at all my different social media platforms, you can actually add up the amount of content that I've posted. And on my Instagram, I've deleted probably 1,000 posts, that from the very beginning that just were no longer relevant to the brand that I currently have. So yeah, I posted probably 2,500 times on IG. I posted over 1,000 videos to YouTube, really 1,500 probably, because I used to have multiple YouTube channels. So maybe 1,500, 2,000, and then TikTok, of course, and et cetera, right? So, we can kind of take it wherever you want of how, I've leveraged social media to build the companies that I've built and what all that's looked like. So wherever you want to take it from there, Danny.
Yeah. So actually, let's start here, because I think that you and I share a very similar. So by the way, like I also have been doing content for about 10 years, but your success has been far greater than mine in terms of like, just like the amount of followers and everything that you've managed to build. And you said something just now and it clicked for me. And I want everyone, especially if you're younger, right? Because I'm 33, Austin, you're 29. So we're both kind of like in that beginning building phases of our like 30, 40 year long business careers. And you said, I wanted to be kind of like an influencer, but like not really, right? Well, influencer didn't even exist right back in the day. That term didn't exist. But I think that there's a big difference between being a social media influencer and a content creator.
Yep.
And when I see your stuff, you're a content creator, right? You're giving value. Influencers don't really give value, right? It's like hot bodies. It's usually very shallow, kind of like a day trade of attention, versus content creation is more of like, hey, come join my ecosystem because I'm going to deliver long-term value. And when I was starting out in real estate, brother, I went Gary Vee style, right? I had the whole vlogging guy. I, spent way too much money on a guy following me around every single day for like almost 2 years. And I wanted to be sexy, but I didn't understand the idea of leveraging video to make money.
Yeah.
Right. I thought that just because I was famous, I would make money. Right. Yeah. Like if I were YouTube famous, but it's actually the other way around, right? At least nowadays it is, right? Like, I don't see a lot of people like getting famous except for Haktua Girl, right? Where she got famous and then, right, you kind of have to build that value first and then you leverage that into more things. And so like, what were some of the early, and maybe not so early, right? Like 10 years, because 10 years is a long time, but like in the last 5 years, walk me through that content creation journey of like, what type of content have you been creating that you feel has delivered the most value and that have delivered like disproportionately larger returns in terms of like either subscribers or followers or whatever?
Yeah. Great question, man. So, I mean, the reality of it is you're 100% right? Like, I think we've all heard the term that if nobody knows who you are, then you can't sell them your product or your service, right? And so we're all aware of that, right? Where it's like, hey, I think fundamentally understand that, if we're an entrepreneur, business owner, really in any industry, right? It doesn't matter if you're a dentist, it doesn't matter what you are. If people don't know who you are or what you do, then you can't actually succeed. It just won't work, right? So some way, shape, or form, every real estate agent, every team leader, every broker, and every dentist, every surgeon, everybody on planet Earth has to do some form of marketing, right? And so, and probably multiple different forms of marketing, probably paid marketing, maybe Google, maybe pay-per-click, maybe, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, right? There's so many different types of marketing that we can do. We have the old school, guerrilla marketing, right? And so I agree with you there. And then the other thing that I agree with you on, Danny, is that the flip side of it, which is kind of what you mentioned, is that if you have a lot of people that know who you are, but you're not good at articulating what you do and how what you do will benefit them or their life or change their life in some way, shape, or form, then that also doesn't do you any good, right? Because everybody in the world could know who you are, but if there's not a call to action, if there's not, some way to monetize the fact that they know who you are, then what's the good of them knowing who you are? You may as well have nobody know who you are. Your life would probably be more simple, right? So, I think at the end of the day, it's the combination of both, right? It's how do I get the most amount of people on planet Earth to know who I am and what I do, right? And then simultaneously, how do I monetize on the simple fact that now people see what I am and what I do, right? Like, how do I drive them into my world? How do I bring them into my funnel? How do I get them to purchase a home? How do I get them to engage with me in some way, shape, or form, right? And so that really is the magic question there, So I think you have to have both. And I think when it comes to your second question about like what type of content or whatever, it's always kind of been evolving for me, and I think it'll continue to evolve, right? I think that, to be honest with you, where I'm at today and probably where I'll be in 10 years probably won't look the same at all. I mean, it probably won't, right? Like if you ask me the same question in 10 years, it'll change, it'll evolve, it'll grow, So right now, what I'll say, and then we can dive into this in any way, shape, or form that you want, but right now, the primary reason that I make content is to help all the companies that I own, which I own, probably 6 or 7 different companies. 3 of them are big, right? And then 4 of them are maybe just, ground floor, right? And so every day when I post on the internet, the whole reason that I do that is to help my companies make more revenue. Okay. So I just want to be very clear for me, right? I don't really make a lot of money directly from content. So I just want to explain that really quick. So I think a lot of people get that confused. And I talk to people all the time, Danny, that are like, you must be, making tons of money from YouTube and Instagram. Right.
Yeah.
And you must be balling out, and it's just not the truth. Right. And it couldn't be further really from the truth, so don't get me wrong. I make a couple grand a month probably from the actual social media platforms like YouTube, Instagram, et cetera, right? And maybe
you mean like ad revenue, right? Ad revenue?
Ad revenue, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. So when you look, Danny, at the amount of money that it costs me to put out the amount of content that I put out compared to the amount of direct money that I receive from these platforms in terms of ad revenue, I'm actually taking a loss on paper. Okay. So I actually make less directly from these platforms than it costs me to put out content on the platform. Okay. So, so then people might ask, like, well, then why would you do it? Right. And the reason why you would do it is because, again, it goes back to everything we just talked about, right? My goal is to make indirect revenue. Okay. So it's a little bit more difficult to track. And it's a little bit more difficult to kind of, draw the line of like, okay, that money came from that piece of content. It's a little more difficult to do that, right? But, you exponentially make more money. So like, let me give you an example of what that could look like, or a hypothetical. Okay. And there's really probably 100 different ways that we indirectly make revenue with my content and my media company. So like one good way, right, for any team leaders out there, any brokers out there, any agents out there, is that by me posting content in the world, right, people know who I am, and somebody might follow me, Danny. This happens all the time, by the way. Somebody might follow me for years. You have no idea how often it happens where somebody will DM me and they'll be like, hey, Austin, I've been following you for 5 years. And they've never DM'd me before. Just out of the blue, they decide to DM me, right? And they're like, I've been following you for 5 years. It took me 5 years to reach out to you. And I'm a real estate agent, and I think I want to join your team. Can you tell me more, right? And I'm like, yeah, I'd love to talk to you about that, right? And so then they eventually join the team. They go through our funnel. They interview with our team. I'm not the one doing any of that anymore, of course. And let's just say they join the team. And let's just say that they don't sell a deal for a year, okay? And then after a year, all of a sudden, they become the number one agent on the team. right? Just so now you've got to think about this for a second. Okay. So that person followed me for 5 years. Okay. So that means that at any point in time, had I stopped putting out content, they probably would have stopped following me. Right. So for 5 years, they followed me. Okay. And here I am making content, providing value, right? And then all of a sudden they join my team. Okay. And then it takes them another year to sell a single deal. And then all of a sudden they become the number one agent on my team. So now what's the ROI on that? Right. It's very difficult to look at that and say, well, 5 years, it cost me, it's very difficult. Right. So, at a certain point when you're at my scale of what we're trying to do, I don't even think about the revenue really. I just know that by me doing what I do, the companies make significantly more money. And I can point to that every single day with all my different companies. So hopefully that makes sense. I think people have to get their mind off of, how much immediate, because you see it all the time, Danny. People do content for 90 days and they don't make any money and they're like, it didn't work. Right?
It didn't work. Yeah.
It didn't work,
It doesn't work for me.
So, and look, if I would have had that attitude, I would have quit a long time ago, because I probably didn't make a lot of money, from content for a really long time. It took me a long time before we actually could really see the fruit of the labor that we were putting in, so hopefully that makes sense. That answers your question. In terms of today, Danny, real quick, we do a lot of podcasts. We do a lot of what I like to call business tours on like the YouTube channel and stuff like that, where I tour different companies and stuff around the world. We do a lot of house tours, which are really good for retail real estate, showing off big luxury, multi-million-dollar listings on my YouTube and my Instagram and TikTok. And then I do some talking head content where, it's just me in front of the camera, talking to the camera, maybe teaching, a particular subject or a particular outcome that I'm trying to teach. So there's kind of different types of content that I post, and they each serve their own purpose, and they're each kind of a drop in the bucket towards that bigger goal that we're working toward, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's actually a really good point, right? I think that so many of us want to track the effectiveness of every single piece of marketing and every single piece of content and whatnot. But it's really like this multi-channel marketing approach, right? So you're not just hitting them on one channel, you're hitting them on all these different channels and for a prolonged period of time. And you don't really know what piece of content, what this, what that. Mm-hmm. And so more than anything, what I'm hearing, Austin, it's the consistency and the willingness to not see results for a long period of time before you start seeing the results. Because I know now, like this is something that you shared with me privately, that your Instagram is responsible for, is one of the, if not the largest lead pillar for your recruiting pipeline.
Yeah.
Right. So had you not built such a large following, right? Not necessarily like, and your content isn't really like recruiting focused, right? It's not like, hey, come join my team sort of thing. But everyone wants to partner with Austin because he's got a large Instagram presence. He clearly knows what he's doing, and he's delivered value for like a long ass time. And then like eventually people have just decided, hey, I want to partner with Austin because he clearly knows what he's doing. Yep. So it's an interesting subject. Now here's the jab, right hook thing, the call to action, right? It's so crucial. You hit that, and I want to hit it a little bit harder because this is something that for me personally, I struggled with for many years. I had, just for context, I now have the largest following, and I'm, to my knowledge, I have the largest YouTube channel in the entire Bay Area for real estate. So of all the realtors in the Bay Area, my channel has the most subscribers.
Yep.
And I built this channel starting in like 2017. I think it started 2017, 2018. And it was exactly 2017. So 17, 18, 19, COVID.
Yep. 4 years,
not a single deal came. And my coach was like, dude, I hired a coach and he was a marketing expert. And he's like, dude, you've been posting at least one video per week consistently for 4 years. and you don't have any business from it? And I was like, yeah, I don't. And he's like, what the hell is going on? So he looked through my videos and everything. He's like, dude, you don't have a call to action, dummy.
Yeah.
Right. So when is it appropriate to put a call to action in, and what kinds of calls to action, Austin, have worked for you in the past?
Yep. Phenomenal story and question, you know. So yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, if anybody were to follow me for any length of time, they would see that I do a call to action probably, I mean, in a lot of my content, right? But it goes back to the jab, dive, hook. So for me, it's less of a formula now and more of a feeling. So like I kind of have it down to a science now. So I know when to post about, you know, hey, join my team, or I'm hiring, or, you know, send me your deals, or whatever the call to action is that I'm trying to accomplish, right? So, you know, for me, dude, my main priority every day is I try to put out value. Okay. So I interview people, that is super valuable, right? Because, you know, I'm talking to other high level people on my podcast, and then we chop all that content up and it goes everywhere, right? Very valuable content if people watch and pay attention. I've had a lot of very high level people on my podcast. So, and then in all these different pieces of content, right? And so then what I'll do is every so often, like I think if I looked at my Instagram story right now, even, I think I literally just did a call to action in the last 24 hours that it might have already auto deleted on my story. Yeah, I think it did. Yeah, but literally last night I posted on my story that I'm hiring for my wholesale company. Okay. I'm hiring a sales guy for my wholesale company. And so that's an example of me, you know, 8:00 at night, I'm sitting on my couch. And I'm like, I'm going to post a story because I need to hire people. Right. And so, you know, you don't want to do 100% of either, right? So like what you were doing was only wrong because you never did a call to action, yep. Right? The opposite would also not be good if all you ever did was a call to action, right? And you never actually provided real value, you know, and you were just constantly talking about, you know, whatever your call to action might be, right? So I think it's just about finding that line of like, okay, and to your point, right? Gary Vaynerchuk wrote the book, you know, Jab, Jab, Right Hook, right? And really, you know, if we were to summarize that entire book, it's exactly what we're talking about, right? Where it's just like jab, jab would be value, and then right hook would be call to action, you know? So it really is just about thinking about that and making sure that you're at any given time putting out more value than you are selling people, right?
Yeah.
People don't want to feel sold. You can sell people. You just can't do it every time you post, right? Like you just have to make sure that it doesn't feel like all you care about is getting whatever it is that you're trying to get. And so as long as people don't feel like that and they feel like you're just a genuine, authentic human being that's just trying to provide value, then there's not like some magic number of how many call to actions you can do. You know, you can play around with it and you can kind of determine where you feel comfortable, you know?
Yep, 100%. And you know, to that point, I think that the calls to action can be different. So there could be different types of calls to action, right? So one of the things that I love doing in my videos now is instead of just saying like, hey, if you like me and you like my videos, come holler, right? Like that's not really, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Do you know that guy, by the way? Do you follow that guy on Instagram?
I've seen his content.
Come holler. Like, dude, like that guy's hilarious. Anyways, so, but I what I really like to do on my YouTube content specifically is lead magnets. Yeah. So I will have a video about housing market data, and I will say, if you want a customized data report for your area, like specific to the area that you're buying or selling in, you can text this number for a customized data report. Yep. Now, high value, right? And again, it is a CTA. So instead of like always being like begging for the business, which I think that there's a time and a place for that, right? Like, for example, you like, hey, we're hiring a sales manager. You've got a massive audience. You've earned the right to like occasionally drop in the story. And that's the other cool thing too, right? Is that you're not inserting that into a piece of content that you're like publishing to your feed. that's the beautiful thing about stories that I really like about IG specifically. Because, and Facebook, I guess, to that point, right? But like IG, I think is really effective. The stories can be really, really effective in terms of, direct CTAs to your audience.
Yeah.
Do you track that, by the way? Like, do you know how many like average views your stories get for those followers?
I'm not even sure, dude. I don't even really pay too much attention to my stories, but I do just do essentially what you're saying, right? Where it's like, I kind of use my stories to show the more authentic side of whatever I'm doing, right? So like my stories for me at least are normally just a fairly unedited, unfiltered, raw version of whatever the heck I'm trying to do or say, right? So it's like, I don't spend a lot of time like crafting a perfect message typically for my stories. So you're going to get, if you watch my stories long enough, you're just going to get kind of that raw, unfiltered version of me,
Yep.
Which is kind of how I think it maybe should be used, So, dude, I agree. I think stories are amazing. And anybody with a big following is going to get a lot of story views because they're only up for 24 hours. And so, they're a phenomenal way to, so my stories, who knows, dude, I mean, I might get, 5,000 story views one day, the next day I get 15,000. Then, I mean, it just depends, right? On story, the time of day that I post and everything like that. And I'm not really worried about how many views they get. Cause again, stories are only up for 24 hours. So if I get 5,000 views, cool. If I get 50,000 views, cool. Like it's like, to me, every eyeball is just kind of an added bonus. Like typically it takes me 1 second to post a story, like literally,
Got it. Yeah. And I like that, right? Like it's less polished, but like, that's okay. Right. Because they're your audience already. And like, that's kind of like what you're going for. That makes a lot of sense. Something that you said that really stuck out to me was the most, my goal is to get in front of the most amount of people possible. Now, granted, your wholesaling company and a lot of your businesses outside of like, the 2 or 3 residential businesses that you have locally are all geared towards like a more national audience.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say? What would your advice be to someone who they're not looking to be national, right? They're looking to be their local market, like the biggest team in their market or the local market expert or whatnot. Like, what would your advice be to someone that's not looking to cast that like massively wide net, but stay focused? What advice would you have to someone that's looking to do it like that?
Yeah, I think the first thing to think about is that you can't be picky, right? I think to some degree, like you're not going to tell somebody not to follow you because they're not in your market. Like you know what I mean? Like it wasn't like I woke up one day and was like, like me gaining the audience that I gained internationally or nationally it was just a byproduct of me putting out content, right? Like it wasn't like, it was just kind of the outcome that happened. Right. And so, but by doing that, you're going to naturally have, a percent, who knows what percent, but a percent of those people that are in your local market, in your local backyard. Right. So I think it's all valuable, right? Every follower's the amount of people that have followed me for a long time, moved here and either gotten a job with one of my companies or in some way, shape or form benefited one of my companies or whatever, and at one point they lived all the way across the country. So like, people move, things change, people, hop around, right? So you never want to limit yourself, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because Danny, you never know what the future holds, right? But here's what I'll say. If like you're an agent, let's just use an agent as an example, right? Yeah, you could put out more content than that is about your local market potentially, right? Like that might be an option. That might be a route that you could take, like saying, hey, I'm a luxury agent in, Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm going to put out, 80% of my content about the market that I live in and the real estate and the housing and the jobs and all the big companies that are moving here or whatever, right? And that's going to be the majority of my content. But what I think ends up happening though, Danny, is that if you try too hard to like be that, I think it's really tough, right? Because, we live in a day and an age where now you're competing against, the whole world, right? when it comes to content. There's a lot of content creators on the internet, so you have to get creative in some way, shape, or form, right? You can't just be like everybody else. Like ultimately, if you have no following and you're really like nobody knows who you are, like you putting out a market update on your Instagram probably isn't going to get very many people to see it, right? Like it's just probably not. I mean, you might get lucky, but I think you have to get more creative than that in today's day and age, right? So there's a million ways you can get creative. You just have to think about it. Follow people, by the way. My biggest recommendation would be find people that have what you want and then do what they did, right? Like it's really simple. So for me, I looked up to Grant Cardone. I looked up to Gary Vee. I looked up to Patrick Bet-David. I looked up to, Lewis Howes, which is a big podcaster. There's all these different people that I looked up to. And I just started to mirror what they were doing. I just started to do what they were doing, right? So I think for anybody watching, it's just like find somebody that has what you want and then do what they did, right? Do what they did, so that would be my biggest recommendation there.
I love that. And I think you can take that advice and take it to the bank because it's, find someone in your market or find someone who's done exactly what you want to do and then emulate it. And but just nothing else to add there, really. One thing that actually popped up into my head as you were saying all of that, and I think that this is just a testament to basically underscore or affirm everything that you just said. So I was making content in Silicon Valley, right? And I interviewed a guy for my team in 2022. And this guy said, so what's funny is that I reached out to him.
Okay.
So he was on my recruiting list and everything. I reached out to him. He was a new licensee. He's like, oh my gosh, you're Danny Gould. And I was like, yeah, dude. He's like, dude, I've been following you on YouTube for 5 years.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, that's awesome. He's like, yeah, believe it or not. He's like, my brother-in-law, he's like, I moved here from Toronto 6 months ago. My brother-in-law knew that I wanted to sell real estate here and I had plans to move to Silicon Valley. And so he showed me your YouTube channel 5 years ago. I subscribed and I've been watching your videos for 5 years.
Wow.
This guy is on the opposite side of the country, up into another country, right? Toronto. And so you never know how those relationships are going to come back around, right, dude? Like it's great. Like that one blew my mind, right? But I'm sure that you have equally as crazy stories where you've found hires or whatever. And the thing is it's not always going to be business, right? So like direct revenue to the business. I think that maybe you can relate here. One of the cool things about making content for your business is that usually if you're doing like an interview style, a podcast style, or anything like that, you're highlighting a business, the digital mayor strategy that was like big back in the day. I don't know if it was just me, but I found that I got a disproportionate amount of value from the people that I interviewed, the people that were on the podcast, the people that were on my shows, versus like putting out the content and like getting leads from it, right? So it was like the business to business owner relationships actually bore a lot more fruit. Have you found the same thing? Is it just me?
For sure. No, 100%. Yeah. Same thing. 1,000,000%. And yeah, dude, I've so many stories of, people that have moved across the country, right? All the things that you mentioned, so you just don't want to limit yourself. I think too many people, they put a cap, they put a ceiling on their potential by saying, it's like, what are you saying? You don't want too many followers? Like, I'm confused, right? Like, you don't want, I've met people before. They're like, I don't want people to know who I am. I'm like, well, then we can't relate. Like, I can't relate to that. I'm not sure why you would want to go hide in a hole. And that would open up a whole nother can of worms that we could get into. But like, even just in terms of, I believe every human's, purpose on earth is probably, I think everybody could probably agree, no matter the faith, religion, or background, that, we're all here to serve other people in some way, shape, or form. I mean, If we serve ourselves for a long enough period of time, we'll be miserable. If we serve other people for a long enough period of time, we'll be fulfilled, right? I think pretty much everybody can agree with that. So, again, it goes back to like, why are you making it all about you, right? Like start making it about other people, think bigger, right? And tell the world your story. I think everybody has a story. Everybody has a unique gift, right? Everybody, you see it all the time, dude. We see it all the time where, people that you never thought like, dude, I see people all the time on the internet where I'm like, dude, like it would have been really easy for that guy or gal to not do what they're doing. Like, you look at them and you're like, wow. And they murder it, they murder it. And it's just like, only because they took action and they put out content, they put out their message to the world, right? So,
yep.
Man, I think we live in a world where too many people are limiting their potential, really.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I think one of my main takeaways from this conversation is that you, from the get-go, it sounds like obviously your main purpose, of the content was to deliver value and to build an audience. And you've allowed the results of that to just kind of come naturally. Like there hasn't necessarily been like, maybe I'm like, not, this isn't 100% true, but there hasn't necessarily been like a fixed strategy the whole time, right? It's been like this, like you said, evolving thing where you've been delivering valuable content and found a way to monetize, but not necessarily had like a monetization strategy, right? Like, hey, this is how we're going to squeeze every last dollar out of the, I
had no freaking clue what I was doing, bro. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I still don't have a clue. I mean, like if you really get down to the bottom of it, I mean, at the end of the day, right? Every day I just try to get a little bit better, man. And I try to get a little louder. I try to get, to get more people to kind of see what we're doing and what we're all about. And I'm always trying new things. I'm failing, right? I've failed a lot in my life. Okay. I've failed way more than the average person has ever even attempted anything. I've fallen flat on my face. I've invested a lot of money. I've lost a lot of money in my career. So I think it's just a matter of trying new crap every day until you find what works. Right. And I think a lot of people, they're just too scared to start, or they're like, I don't know what to say, or I don't want to be on camera or this or that. And it's like, dude, you're self-limiting beliefs. Like you got to get over it, right? Like you have to get over it. And the only way to get over it is to do it. You're not going to get over it by never doing it. I can guarantee you that. I've never seen anybody overcome their fear by watching a video, even watching this podcast, right? Like at the end of the day, whoever might be listening right now out there, you might get a bunch of gold nuggets from me and Danny talking, but until you stop listening to the podcast and you go take action, nothing's going to change, right? Like all the information in the world isn't going to do anything for you,
Yeah. Right. Yeah, 100%. And by the way, like you want to know how Austin's telling the truth. He just admitted earlier in this podcast that it took him 7,000 posts. Yeah. 7,000 posts to get to the level that he's at right now. And like, if you did an audit of where you're at and versus the 7,000, you're probably not there, Dude, and
I'm nowhere close to where I want to be. Right. And that's the other thing is that as you do anything in life, really, but especially we're talking about content and, social media, right? But as you do more and get better and build it bigger, the further away the goal gets, the bigger the target, right? Like the goalpost is always moving. And, dude, I look at my content all the time and I'm like, man, it could be better. Like every single day I walk into my media team's office and I point out things about my content that could be better. Every day, dude, every freaking day of my life, I go in there and I'm like, let's try this. Let's try that. Let's try this. Let's try that. I'm always thinking bigger, right? I'm always thinking, so like, cause for me, I'm now, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, which I know, some people but I compare every so often. You have to some degree, you have to see what other people are doing, right? So people can say, don't ever compare, don't compare. Yeah, I get it, right? Like you don't want to compare so much that you hate your life and think you're not doing anything. but you also have to do a little bit of comparison to know if you're on the right track and if you're doing the right thing, right? And you're on the right path, So
I agree.
So every so often I will just do a little comparison. I'll look at other people in my industry, look at, Ryan Pineda. I'll look at, just different people, right? Ryan Serhant, whoever it might be. And I'll look at what they're doing, right? And every so often I'll look at other people that have posted 14,000 times. And I'm like, gosh, dang it, I've only posted 7,000, I'm like, I'm slacking off, right? Like I need to do more, So look, there's always another level, right? And in no way, shape, or form have I achieved or gotten to the top of the mountain, and I probably never will, right? And that's okay, dude. But, we're going to get better every day, and we're going to continue to evolve, and we're going to figure it out one day at a time.
I love that, man. Well, we're coming up here on time, and there's a couple other things I think that we should talk about. Obviously, you've grown a massive following, right? And I think that your message to the audience is don't limit yourself. Don't kind of like put yourself into this silo where it's like, I only serve this market. It's like, yeah, the majority of your content could be to serve that market, but then also like my story just now, right? And your story, right? Your content is naturally going to reach other people, and just be aware that like the bigger the audience you grow doesn't necessarily limit your ability to grow inside of your local market. In fact, it's probably just going to support it even that much more. To that point though, something that we could briefly talk about is I was a part of a YouTube mastermind. This guy, he's actually really famous. His name's Daryl Eves. Have you heard of Daryl before?
I have not. No.
Okay. He runs VidCon. It's like a yearly. Gary Vee spoke at it one year. So it's like a YouTuber conference, and he runs it. He gives a lot of like YouTube advice. Anyways, and if you're listening to this and you want to grow your YouTube channel, I highly recommend that you go research Daryl. He's actually got a lot of good stuff. But he gave a couple of example stories, and this is something that like you mentioned earlier in the podcast, which is the idea that like you are not going to get rich from your content. In fact, your content is probably like a break even at best, right? Yep. Like the amount of ad revenue and whatever, revenue you get from the channels, the platforms are not going to be enough really to even cover the cost of your video editor and the production and all that.
Yeah, at any level too, Danny. Look at Mr. Beast, right?
Oh, 100%.
He's the number one. I don't know. Is he number one? Maybe he's the number one. He's top 5, probably for sure. But I mean, I watched a podcast with him not too long ago at Casey Neistat, and he's like, I don't make any money. He's like, I reinvest every dollar I make back into my content.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is, yep.
And this is a guy that posts and gets 100 million views on a video.
Yep.
So yeah, you're not going to make money from your content, right? You're going to make money indirectly through the relationships that you build through your content. So people need to understand that's all it is. At the end of the day, as human beings, there's roughly 8 billion people on planet Earth, right? And I really believe this, Danny. I look at every industry, and I tell my sales team this all the time in every company. But there's not a single industry that I can think of where people aren't the solution to making more money or to solving a problem or to creating more revenue or whatever, right? Like to achieving your goal, right? It always comes down to people. Like you really can't achieve anything great on planet Earth without people. You really can't. I mean, I've tried to think of ways that you could do it before. Maybe if you're a stock trader, right? But then again, it takes a lot of other people trading in the stock market, right? Like if you were the only guy. So I'm just saying that, like if you're a dentist, right? You need people to do their teeth. Like you gotta market yourself. You need people to walk into your dentistry and be like, yo, I need my teeth whitened, or I need my cavity filled, or I need veneers or whatever, right? So you have to always be thinking about, my goals and my dreams, I'm only going to achieve by meeting more people and building more relationships. There's an old saying, the more hands that you shake, the more money that you'll make, right? And so, at the end of the day, It's all just about how many people can I build a relationship with, right? Well, how do you, in 2024, get in front of the most amount of people? Probably social media, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you could go stand on the corner and hold a sign, like the homeless guy, but, you're limited to just the people that are driving down that road, right? And so, you're pretty limited, and then you're limited even more by the amount of people that are even going to pay attention to you or see you at all or whatever, So, there's really no other way that I can think to build relationships with a lot of people. I met my fiance through social media. I met a lot of my business partners through social media, right? I've met, so it's not just, I think this social media now is just the platform in which people meet each other and interact. Now, it doesn't mean you can't still stumble into a bar and be having a cocktail and talk to the guy to the left or to the right of you and build a relationship and sell their $30 million home or whatever, right? Like, sure, that can still happen. It still happens to me all the time. But at the end of the day, the highest and best use of somebody's time is probably to put out content and to get people to watch it. Because you're going to reach the most amount of theoretical people in the shortest amount of time with the least amount of energy.
Yeah, that's that's a great point. And it's funny because like if people look at their I remember when I was just starting out and I was like, man, I only got a couple hundred views or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. And I'd be so bummed. But then like when you really think about it, you're like, oh shit, like that's, like that would fill like a theater, right? Yeah. Of like, like, so you start to really think about it in like different ways and you put it in perspective like that. What's interesting is kind of put a bow on that. Daryl kind of drove home the point that yes, you should always be striving to like build this massive audience, but he brought up tons of people at VidCon that had under 50,000 and under 10,000 subscribers on their channel that were making 7 figures from their YouTube channel through selling through their channel, right? Like just like you or I would pitch our real estate services as an example, right? On YouTube. And then that inspired me to kind of like start my team's channel. That was responsible in 2021 and 2022 for almost $1 million in GCI.
Yep.
And so you don't necessarily have to have like a massive following like Austin, right? Obviously you want to strive to get there. And, but also for anyone who's listening to this back at home, it's like, you don't have to be there to get $1 million results.
Yeah.
As long as you play the game intelligently, as we just talked about, strong CTAs, jab, 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 right hook, understand your audience, understand their pain points, and find creative and unique ways to address those pain points through your content, through lead magnets, through, value adds in your content, and then, the occasional right hook, call to action. So yeah, man, I mean, dude, this has been awesome. I feel like you and I could we could talk about this for a long time. But yeah, this has been great, man. Any final, as we wrap up right now, before we let the audience go, one final, just thought of that could be impactful for someone who's listening to this and that wants to leverage social media to take their business to the next level.
I think it's, I'm just going to keep it simple, Danny. I think just click off the podcast and take action, right? Take action. Don't overthink it. You don't need a plan. You don't need to, come up with a content strategy, right? Like you don't need some fancy software. You don't need a fancy camera. You don't need fancy lighting or microphones. Like what you need to do is you need to just take action right now and every day after today until you have a better understanding of what you actually need to get to the next level, right? Because in the beginning, it's all about just taking action, okay? You could go make let's say you're an agent, right? You could go visit a luxury listing in your area today. You could schedule it right now, okay? To go visit a luxury listing, maybe $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, whatever. And you can take your iPhone or your Android, right? If you're one of them, and you can walk through that luxury house with your camera and take a video, okay? And then you can post that on your Instagram, your TikTok, your YouTube, your Facebook, your Twitter, right? And you can put a caption, maybe put some music, and just put what the house is. Just be like, here's what $2 million buys you in, Phoenix, Arizona, right? It's a 5-bed, 3-bath, listed at $1,999,000. I'd love to help. If you have any interest in buying or selling real estate, I'd love to help, and put a good song behind it and post it, right? Like that. You doing that will yield an infinite amount of results more than you not doing it, right? Like, think about it. So I think the biggest takeaway, man, is that with content, for whatever reason, everybody thinks that they have to be perfect. And I think it comes back down, Danny, probably to like people, I think human beings naturally, they don't want to be judged. They don't want to be judged by the world. They don't want to be judged by people. They fear not fitting in. I think we all, even me to this day, right? There's still days where I think, there's that underlying self-limiting belief of like, I have to fit in. I have to be liked. People have to like me, and I have to say the right thing. And if I don't say the right thing, then people won't like me. And if people don't like me, then that'll mean that I don't fit in. And if I don't fit in, then I'm depressed, or my life has no meaning, or whatever, right? And I think we weigh completely disproportionately overthink, all of that, right? When the reality of it, the truth of the matter is, some people aren't going to like you, right? Some people aren't going to like you. Some people aren't going to agree with you. Some people are going to judge you, right? That is a byproduct of putting yourself out there, right? You can't, one won't happen without the other. Even if you thought about every content perfectly and you had the perfect plan and the perfect everything, somebody's still not going to like you for it. You're still to rub somebody the wrong way. No matter what you do or what you say, even if you try to take the most neutral stance in the world, I see some people, they're like, I don't want to talk about politics, right? I don't want to tell the world, who I vote for or whatever. I get it, right? And to each their own. But at the end of the day, even those people are going to hate on those people, because you're going to have some people that are like, you should be talking about it, right? So no matter what you do, somebody's going to see what you're doing and be like, I don't agree with that. I don't like that. I think he could have done it better. I don't like the way he looks. I don't like the clothes he's wearing. I don't like fill in the blank, dude. It's okay, bro. It's okay. And I think we fundamentally, as human beings, we have to get over that. We have to get past that. We have to move on from that. We have to graduate from the self-limiting belief that the whole world needs to like and agree with you to fit in, to be accepted, right? And we have to start taking action and not caring about what people think. And the people who like it are going to be the right people for you. And the people who don't like it are going to be the wrong people for you, And I've really started to see this, Danny, as I've continued to scale even more. Now I take harder stances on stuff as I've gotten bigger, right? And it's now dawned on me that I should have just been doing it all along. It didn't matter, right? Now I'll take a hard stance. I'll really say how I feel. And I already know that a lot of people aren't going to like it, I'll just say right here in conclusion, right? And people can either, unsubscribe from our podcast if they don't. I don't really care, right? But, when Donald Trump almost got assassinated, I posted a photo on my Instagram, right, of that. And had 1,000 people in an hour unfollow me, right? Literally.
That's insane, dude.
In 1 hour, 1,000 people unfollowed me, right? I think in total, it was probably a couple thousand people from one photo, right? One photo. Yeah. And dude, I don't care. I don't freaking care, man, because that I felt like I wanted to post it. I don't even need to explain myself. And I think, we have to all kind of graduate to get to that point. For so long, I thought I had to explain myself about everything, right? Mm-hmm. Now I'm at a point where it's like, dude, I don't even need to explain myself. You either like it or you don't like it. And I really don't care. You either like what I'm saying or you don't like what I'm saying. And if you want to unfollow me, because I'm going to attract the right people and I'm going to attract the right eyeballs of people who want to work with me and do business with me and be my friend. And the people who weren't right for me, dude, they should have never been following me to begin with. We were never going to do a deal to begin with. The people that want to get fit for me, we would have never freaking made any money together to begin with. What was the point of them following me in the first place? So I think it's just about, getting over that, right? And taking action, okay? And don't overthink it. Just do and screw it up and fail. And look, you're going to post every so often and it's just going to do terrible, right? Happens to me all the time. You would be surprised, Danny, at the amount of times, even this month, there's been probably 2 or 3 videos that I put out where I'm like, that video is for sure going to hit, right? Like that video is going to go viral. It flops, bro. It flops. It freaking falls flat on its face. I'm like, what the hell happened? You know? And then, bro, the content that I'm like, there ain't no goddamn way that thing's ever, people aren't, there's 0% chance that piece of content's ever going to go viral. It'll get 10 million views, right?
Yes.
It happens all the time, dude. So like that's a great example of like, you could get in your own way very easily and not post a piece of content because of how you think it's going to perform. And that might have been the piece of content that made you $1 million.
Catapulted you. Catapulted you to a different level. Yeah. I couldn't agree more, man. I think that's a great way to wrap things up. I mean, I think the bottom line here is the fear of posting or the inaction usually is a culmination of a couple things, right? Like inherent human laziness, which I would assume that, people who are running their own business can like get themselves out of that. But the other part is as you just said, is being judged, right?
Yeah.
And it takes a really long time. And I think it takes a lot of years of getting battered and bruised and beat up over and over and over again to kind of build that callus up to the point where you have like that I don't give a fuck energy, right? Where you're just like, I just don't care anymore, right? And it sounds like you're there, which is awesome. And yeah, man, dude, this has been phenomenal. So glad that we got to do this, and I'm really looking forward to having another conversation about this, maybe in like a couple of months once we kind of see what this new year of social media trends and everything brings. But until then, man, this has been awesome.
Dude, I appreciate you, bro. Yeah, thank you everybody for listening to Danny. Thank you for being here and co-hosting it with me. And have people reach out to you, Danny, or me, or whoever, and and maybe next time we do a video about social media, we can do a deep dive on maybe more specifically like the different strategies and stuff like that. But I'm really glad that in today's video, we got to just kind of talk about, the foundation for everything. So I'm excited for a future video, Danny, and I appreciate it.
Awesome, man. Cool.